I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delighted to introduce you to James Kleiner. He's the author of a heartwarming memoir called Landing on My Feet. For 33 years, James dedicated his life to educating young minds, navigating the triumphs and challenges of the teaching profession. But his journey wasn't just about imparting knowledge. He learned valuable lessons too. Join us right now as he shares his unforgettable experiences, the impact of his mentors, and the joys of inspiring the next generation. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight, and we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his delightful book. The links are below this interview. James, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. Great to be here.
Tell me about the title, Landing on My Feet. It caught my attention, that's for sure.
Well, I had a bunch of different instances in my career where, things were going great. I was in the school system teaching. I was happy. And then all of a sudden, it was like the rug got pulled out of from under my feet. And I had to do something. I had to make some decisions. And in all cases, I was able to land on my feet. So that's where the title came to mind.
Exactly. And that's kind of the secret to life is we're all going to take falls. It's whether we land on our back, land on our face, or land on our feet, which is what, determines the quality of our life, as we like to say, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the story of Landing on My Feet. What will the folks at home who purchase your book find between the covers?
Well, the story basically germinated very early on in my life, and from a very young age, I got involved in music in elementary school, and I was inspired by my music teachers. I grew up on Hicksville, Long Island, New York, and I had a wonderful set of teachers, elementary school, junior high, senior high. And they, by the time I would say, a sophomore in high school, I already knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to impart that joy and excitement to others. And so I became inspired to be a teacher, uh, I went on through college. I had some great college experiences, and then getting out in the profession, um, it was always a joy, I found, to work with kids. And at the same time, I was discovering, as I was discovering ways to help them and relate to them, I found that I was learning about myself. I was learning about them. Um, I was learning as much as from them as that I thought they were learning from myself. And that was a joy that I was totally unexpected.
Yeah, I think that's the amazing thing about working with children and young people in general is they're just as intelligent as you are, perhaps more so. They might not have the accumulated knowledge or experience or the education, but what young people and children can come up with, kids really do say the darndest things. I mean, Art Linkletter was right a long time ago, right?
Right, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
The book obviously is Landing on Your Feet. Let's talk about a significant challenge or obstacle that you overcame, learned from, and thrived afterwards.
Well, one of the things that I discovered very early on was that I, if things didn't go well in class or in a band rehearsal, uh, I get a little upset, and it was um, it's not kind of part of my nature to get upset and then to have that feeling for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
I found that I was carrying over my upset into the next class, and that
right.
wasn't fair to the kids, so forth. And one day in my first year of teaching, I was sitting in the teacher's cafeteria, and we were talking about, so I overheard somebody say, I feel as though I'm on the stage from the moment I walk into the building until the moment I leave. And I started thinking about that. I said, yeah, that is kind of the feeling. I said, I wonder if, when I get into front of the band for a rehearsal, let me act like the conductor. And if something doesn't go right, I can act a little bit upset and get what I want. But then when the rehearsal's over, the play is over,
Mhm.
and I'm back to myself.
Yeah.
And that seemed to work.
Yeah.
I was able to get to the next class and start from scratch.
Yeah. So that
You know,
was an example of one of your mentors giving you a little advice along the way that you took to heart, and it changed your, way of teaching, basically.
yes, it did.
Yeah.
Right from the first few months.
Yeah.
And that was a really important thing for myself.
You're also blessed, teaching music and band in that you often have some of the best students in school, right? They tend to be the more educated, higher IQ, less disciplinary problems, that kind of thing, right?
Yes, and I've always felt very fortunate in that respect. But there's a few chapters in the book in which I talk about kids that were troubled
Yeah.
or, had problems at home. Um, and, guidance counselor would tell me, the only reason that this kid wants to come to school is because of your band.
Yeah.
And then I've also had, I've had autistic students, and how to deal with them.
Mm.
Uh, and I learned some very important lessons there too. So,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
it's very, very true. I mean, so many kids don't find a lot of reward in the academics part of t school. They do find it in the after school activities, and they do find it in the arts. I know I was lost until I found dramatics in high school, and that was the only reason I went. I had no
yeah,
interest in class whatsoever, but I would go to class just so I could go to play practice after school, you know
right.
kind of the same thing, that you're talking
Yes,
about, that band was the motivating factor for a lot of your kids to go to school, continue with their education, get the grades they needed, because you have to maintain sometimes a certain grade point average even to participate in after school programs, right?
that's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. And we often had 7 a.m. jazz band rehearsals, or after school marching band rehearsals.
Yeah.
And the kids were there. It
Yeah.
was tough for me to get up that early,
I
but
know.
they were there and they were ready, and there's nothing better than starting your morning off playing some jazz.
Exactly.
I,
Well, I do every morning. I'm not playing it myself. I'm playing it on my home speaker. That's true. But
yeah.
that is great. And it's amazing. Kids wouldn't get to class by 7 a.m., but they have no problem playing, jazz or blues music at 7 a.m., which is terrific as well. Um, yeah, you bring me a lot down memory lane. We did MAME in high school, and I was Beauregard, Jackson,
Oh,
Pickett, Burnside. And it was just a lot of fun with the band. And we had a very hellish conductor, though, but I won't talk about him right now. Very tough priest by the name of Father Lancelotti. Nice guy,
oh,
but very
oh,
hard on us guys.
wow.
Wanted to ask you, what was it like going down memory lane yourself when you're writing this book? That must have been quite a joy, right?
Well, it really was, and being a pack rat like I always have been, I saved everything from elementary school all the way up through my own schooling, and then I was saving roll books and plan books from my early years of teaching and so forth. So when I retired, I had all of this material, and I started looking through it. I said, "Gee, I've got enough stuff here for a book."
Hmm.
If I can just organize it and uh, so forth. And so that was I was amazed at my memory,
Mhm.
to be able to go back and sift through what happened on this day, what happened on that day, and I even had some dates written down
Yeah.
in the stuff that I had. Um, but it and I also did some research in how to write a memoir.
Mhm.
I read some books on how to do that. I read a wonderful book by Stephen King called On
Mhm.
Writing,
Yeah.
and that was such an enjoyable book to read, and he just laid it all on the line,
Yeah.
how he writes. I also read a very interesting book that came out of left field Um, it was by Tony Danza,
Hmm.
the actor. He had always wanted to be a teacher. And
Okay.
so after his acting career had kind of been on the wane, he said, let me see it. Let me go to a school and find out if they'd let me be like a student teacher for a year. And he did that. And he chronicled his his path in a book, and he called the book, I'd like to apologize to every teacher I've ever had.
That should be the story of my memoir as well. I
But
was such a disruptive student, so
yeah,
I can
yeah.
relate. I
And
can
you know
relate.
what the great thing is, Logan, is that now with Facebook, um, I'm in touch with a lot of my former students.
Hmm.
And we're talking about I started in the 70s, 80s. These people are in their 50s.
Yeah,
And but I've been able to reconnect with so many of them.
right.
And they'll say to me, "Hey, boy, I loved your course. I loved
Yeah.
your rehearsals. I loved having you as a teacher," and that really makes me feel great.
Yeah, I mean, it might almost has become a cliche that every student has one teacher that touched them, changed their lives. And that was the same with me. I mean, if it wasn't for my drama teacher in high school, a guy named Father James Cashman, I would never have pursued my career. And he inspired me. I mean, he took a sophomore, gave him the lead in the play in high school. And these are huge moments for a student. When you
Oh,
give that
absolutely.
kid that solo, that means so much to him. It means something to you, but it means much, much more to him or her, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've these people have told me this, but I knew already that
That
so
you'd
many
made an
so many
impact.
kids had, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had, although I had some rough times in my career, I had some wonderful times as well that always seemed to balance out um, you know,
Yeah.
the bad the tough times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I got to, if this becomes a movie, I've got a working title for it. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, sure.
Mr. Kleiner's Opus.
Ah, well, that movie, Mr. Holland's Opus, inspired me at one point.
Yeah.
I had left teaching for a decade and went into computer programming, and seeing Mr. Holland's Opus was kind of a revelation for me, and kind of told me, "Gee, you ought to get back to teaching again."
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
I did. And I had a Mr. Holland's Opus experience in my career.
What is that? I'd love to hear it.
Well, I've been working for the school system for about a year. This was a school system I went back to after I seeing Mr. Holland's Opus, and they had an opening, and I went in, and I it was great. It was high school, middle school, and but the way things turned out in the middle of my second year there, I got a notice saying, and again, this was one of these landing on my feet experience.
Mm,
I got a note saying they're cutting your position.
mm.
And so at the end of this year, you don't have a job anymore here. And I immediately went out in networking, and I was able to get a job. But it caused me to have to leave this school system before the end of the year.
Hmm.
And on my last day, I was packing up, and I had a phone call saying, "Mr. Kleiner, could you report to the auditorium?" And I went down. I'm wondering what's going on. And I walked in, and there was my band sitting on the stage, and the principal, and the auditorium was filled. The whole school was sitting there, and they just wanted to thank me for my time there, and they gave me a beautiful plaque and a T-shirt that they all signed, and everything. That was my Mr. Holland's Oven. I
Wonderful.
I I don't know how I got through speaking to the crowd.
Yeah, I would have been teary-eyed
I
for
was,
sure. Maybe
yeah.
even weeping openly.
So I actually had a Mr. Holland's Opus moment
No, that's
myself.
wonderful. Well, it was well deserved because obviously you cared deeply about your profession. You cared deeply about the children you teach and taught. So it's great. And it's been great talking to you. The name of the book is Landing on My Feet by James Kleiner. For More than 3 decades, he dedicated his life to young people, helping them navigate their lives in education and in music. And he learned some things along the way, and you'll learn some things about your own life and your own journey by reading his. It's a terrific story. James, thanks so much for being our guest here today on Spotlight.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it, Logan.
I enjoyed it as well. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.